Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers.
Experience is not about the publisher, it is about us, the authors.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kendra, author of Unhooked, 40 Days to Breaking the Chains of Addiction. And today I wanted to open it up for your guys' questions. What kind of questions do you guys have about overcoming addiction? What are you personally experiencing? And in the meantime, while we're gathering some questions, I wanted to talk about a healing crisis. So if you've ever experienced a spiritual awakening or starting to go in the path of healing, often what we experience is, say we were working a job. I'll just give myself as an example. So the first time I experienced going through the metaphysical anatomy healing session with the creator of it, before I went to learn from her, I was working a job that I was working for Samsung, and I'd learned all that I could learn. I was no longer expanding in that career, and I was starting to do my thank you. I was starting to do my business on the side, and I was like doing readings in the bathroom while I was at work, and so when I went through my healing session, and she was bringing me back to, she said, there's about a 20% chance that your mom's going to feel the work that we did here today, but there's like an 80% chance she might not. And I was like, my mom? Like, I don't even remember talking about my mom, because the healing work that we do is it's very soothing. It's like going into a meditation. It feels healing. And so what we're talking about today is experiencing a healing crisis, and I'm opening it up for questions from you guys. So what questions do you have about overcoming addiction? What are you experiencing in your life? What are you experiencing with your friends and family? Anything that you guys want help with. So I'm working this job, and I've gone, as far as I can go on that road. And I had a near-death experience while I was driving to work. I hit black ice, and I was totally traumatized, but felt very jaded thereafter going to work. Like, do you understand? I almost died. Is it really worth it to come to this job? And so when I went through the session with her, she said, give your body 7 days to integrate and wake up to the work that we just did here today. And so it was 7 days for me to integrate and wake up. And it was 15 days later that my mother called me. And she was like, I don't know what happened. I just feel like I woke up after being asleep for 15 years. I quit my job and I started my own business, and it was all because of you. And she had no idea that I went through this healing session. She we weren't even in contact at that time. And um and uh and then I lost my job. And so we can think about, losing a job as being something really negative, but when it's impeding our ability to move forward and it's not the path that we're here to walk and we become aware of that, it has to go. And so it's just like if you guys are familiar with the tarot, which is very similar to the book of Revelations. If you see the tower card, it's like the tower is falling. And if we hold on to it and try to put it back together, then we're going to get, pretty wounded. We're going to get really messed up. And it's just like trying to go into a door that's been locked and we're continuing to try to open that door. And so people can experience the healing crisis and then think that something has gone terribly wrong, this work isn't working, or it's making my life worse. And the thing is like, there's something that actually Jesus says. He says, like, basically you have to, when you turn on the lights and you see the mess, it's going to leave you disturbed. But then you go about cleaning it up, And so when we become aware of the problem, that's a problem half solved. And so a lot of the times, like, people experience awakening, and the first awakening is to, like, first we're asleep, and then the first awakening is to think that you're awake and everybody else is not. And that's like spirituality 101. Everybody's like, oh, I'm changing my diet and this is the way to go. And everybody else, like, how do I get those other people not to affect me because I'm in, my high state or whatever. And then the second awakening happens when you realize that if even one person isn't awakened, then you aren't either, because we are all one. And so seeing ourselves as one is the second awakening. And then the third awakening comes when you start to take responsibility for the world around you and you become a teacher, and however that looks, and know that every single one of us are teachers, because we're all teaching people how to treat us. And so, what are we teaching the world? And often, we experience trauma, and then we bleed out on the, like, somebody touches that wound and we react and we respond and we think that we're justified. We think that we're justified because they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have poked there. But ultimately, it's up to us to heal those wounds and not bleed out on the world around us, or not use it as our excuse for not being a great person. Do you believe that all kinds of addiction can be overcome? Absolutely. I believe that addiction is a spirit. It's an entity that we make a deal with. And so the thing that people don't understand is, when we take something, whether it be a drug or a drink or even a medication, we are saying we would like this thing to go and help us in some way, to do something to us. And so that allows for entities to, that's why they call alcohol spirits, because you are literally allowing for a spirit to possess you. And people don't understand that they're giving away their sovereignty when we're ingesting alcohol or, taking drugs. Entities live on those things, and they're trying to influence the human population. And that's why you see with specific drugs, you'll see the manifestation in a person's body starts to, like, they all start to look the same. The way that they act or respond, like, you can see this right now with the fentanyl crisis. That's such a 90% of the people, actually 100% of the people that have sat down in front of me, and I say, did you lose somebody to overdose or suicide? And they say overdose, and I say, was there fentanyl in it? And it's like they got heroin and it was laced with fentanyl. Now kids are getting joints, weed, that are laced with fentanyl, and they're dying from smoking a joint. Can you imagine being 16 years old, trying marijuana for the first time and dying because fentanyl is put in it? And so there's, would you agree that addiction is some sort of a transaction? Yeah, it's like you're allowing something to enter into you, and it gets to influence the way you're thinking and behaving. And so people just need to understand that we're giving away our sovereignty. That's why when somebody drinks a certain alcohol, or like sometimes they black out and they start dancing on tables, and you're like, oh, I've never seen her act like that before. Well, it's because there's a spirit that is possessing her. And oftentimes that happens, and then we start to take that on as our identity, and then we either try to we feel ashamed, so we try to hide it, or we go into it more and we start to develop that identity, but it's really more of a possession. So yeah, I think that if everyone understood that like alcohol, for instance, contains nothing that is healing. There's no benefit from drinking alcohol. It kills us. It doesn't allow us to sleep. It allows for entities to possess us. Like it's not a great thing. And then that's the one thing that's legal everywhere, right? Aside from spiritual readiness, how do we ready our bodies for healing? Well, our bodies are so intelligent, and um and it's really just listening to our bodies. And a lot of the times we don't do that. And we start to think that our bodies are against us when we're experiencing illness or ailments, but our bodies are never against us. And so if we're experiencing an ailment, it always has an emotional root cause. There's some part of us that is stuck in a trauma that wasn't completed. And so the emotion is always feeding the physical. And so if you listen to your body, like if your right knee goes out, well, the right side is our masculine side, and the knee is all about stepping forward. So where are you feeling like you can't step forward in your masculine energy? Like every part of the body that has an ache or pain, or even the slightest throbbing, it's telling us something. So I feel like the best way that we could prepare our bodies for healing is just to listen to it. Just deeply allow, as human beings, we're meaning making machines, and we think we know best. And sometimes we just need to get out of the way and allow ourselves to listen. Yeah, speaking of that, do any of you guys have any ailments or physical pains in your bodies? Maybe we can go into what the emotional root cause is for that. Also, in my book, there is, I know I briefly talked about this, but on page 41, there's the emotional expression process. And in relationships, you often see, especially when there's conflict, there's this upset. They get triggered and then they start yelling at each other, and nothing ever gets solved, and then people walk away, right? And either they brush it off and they don't ever talk about it again, or they you try to just they blame it on one person, right? But nothing ever gets solved. Do you have any tips on what to watch out for if you think that your child is taking drugs. Yes, let me get back to that in 1 second. So with the emotional expression process, when upset happens, it allows for you to set a safe container for both of you to express your emotions completely and be heard. And so you get like a talking stick and you set a container. Hey, can we have, a time tonight or later this week where we can go through what we're actually feeling and hold space for one another? And so whoever's more triggered or more like able to tap into that anger goes first. The other one just holds space and doesn't take anything personally. They're just receiving what the other person is saying without being defensive. And you start at anger and you allow for everything that you're angry about and you just follow the steps. And I give you prompts. And then it goes down all the way until you dissolve that anger into love naturally. And then when that resolution happens at the end, then you switch and the other person goes. And this allows things that, if you're in a relationship and you guys keep having that same argument, that same fight just keeps happening over and over again, and you try to avoid it so you don't go down that pathway, so you don't have to go there again. But if the full range of emotion isn't dissolved and completed, then it will stay in that hyper aroused state and you'll never get anywhere. And so this takes something that could take years of fighting and wasting time. And each emotion takes 90 seconds to dissolve if we actually allow ourselves to experience it without suppression. The moment that we start to push it away and say, okay, I don't want to feel anger right now, or I don't have time, or I'm not in the right place, or, whatever, because I don't have a safe container to feel this, then we just loop in powerlessness. And that upset will keep us in that state of hyperarousal every time it's pushed on. So this is a beautiful process. I feel like it's literally saved so many of my relationships. So I invite you all to try it out. And some warning signs about if you're, worried about your child, what to watch out for if your child is taking drugs. I feel just creating a level, like being a bridge and creating this level of safety with your children so that they know. Like with my daughter, I told her, if you ever are being tempted, like you want to start to experiment, I want you to come to me. And so we can have a conversation about it. And I made the mistake of saying, and if you want to try something, then do it in my house with me so that I can make sure that you're safe. And then she was like, okay, well, when can we do that? And I was like, whoa, calm down. But just, I feel like having that open communication, making sure that your children don't feel like they have to hide it, because that will, I'm not saying to enable it, but just make sure that if they're thinking about something, that they can come to you and have an open conversation. If your child is starting to pull away and you think that they might be going in that direction, the moment that they start to feel withdrawal, or they start to feel depressed about something, going through puberty is it's a traumatic experience, I think, for all of us, and it creates holes in our auric field. And so we'll experience, if a child is very intuitive or has maybe psychic abilities or mediumship abilities, or is just highly sensitive, they're going to be I want to say, like, and if they aren't like really feeling connected at school, they're going to spend more time in other realms. And things can enter when our energetic fields, our auric fields, are open. So I feel like keeping our children interested in things, keeping their attention, helping them to make friends, and making sure that they know that, yes, you are the parent, but you can also be there for them. I pride myself on the fact that I'm the first person that my daughter comes to if she gets a boyfriend, like I'm the first person she wants to tell. And so keeping those lines of communication open are essential. A vice becomes a vice if you let it take hold of you, if you let it become a demon inside of you. Yeah, absolutely. It's just like when you said that, I heard like, do the drug, don't let the drug do you. And I feel like back in the day when with more natural drugs, that are created in nature, like psilocybin, or psilocybin has massive healing effects to the brain if it's used correctly. Marijuana, it's not, as long as it's coming from the earth, I feel like that used to be a rite of passage. But now things are so synthetic, and yeah, they're just taking people's lives, and people are using it for a way to completely escape and not feel the emotional pain. Oh, I missed that last question. As an alternative for alcohol, puberty can be a very demanding period in a teen's life. And that's why it's important parents always be there if possible. Yeah, for sure. And then what was that next question? As alternatives for alcohol, would you recommend teas or coffee? Yeah, absolutely. There's also like other things, like there's guy, I can't remember like right offhand, but there's like kavas or things like that still allow you to like they're helping the nervous system to calm down. Coffee is great if you're doing a cleanse. Sometimes I will do coffee with no cream or sugar the last day of a cleanse to just purge out. But everything can be a blessing or a curse depending on our level of consciousness. So as long as we're not going to something every single day and needing it in order to wake up or in order to function, yeah, it's like allowing for this co-creation or the synergy to happen with us and the plants and animals around us, to use everything respectfully and to never give our power away to it. But did you guys have any other questions? Have you guys ever experienced a healing crisis? Yeah, for sure. I've really enjoyed joining with you every day. And I pray that you guys will all go get my book. And even if you aren't experiencing, an addiction, just going through, look at Yeshua, or Jesus the Christ. He spent 40 days in the desert, and that's what this book, Unhooked, 40 Days Breaking the Chains of Addiction, is all about. It's about purging ourselves from the stuff of this world that causes us to cling. And I feel every single person, I feel that I know every single person that walks through the 40-day journey will be a happier, healthier person on the other side with much more self-awareness. Yeah, did you guys have any other questions? Yeah, we already answered that question. I feel like when we constantly use something and we start to build our identity around who we are when we're under that influence, that can create like a massive part of us that is being controlled by that entity. And I feel that that's what happens when we see our loved ones and they become addicts in whatever way, shape, or form, and like they completely change. It's like the reason why they've changed is because that's not them. That's what's possessing them. So, would you recommend to purge themselves of demons? Honestly, it all you have to do is walk through this process and consciously choose to surrender your life to a higher power, and that is how you purge yourself of demons. Also doing your healing work so that they don't have a way to enter, and understand that it's always a choice on our behalf to allow them to enter, um, because they're coming and they're like, say if we're feeling really super depressed and somebody hurt us, then an entity can come to us and it's like basically like making a deal with the devil. Like they're coming in and they're offering us this to relieve that feeling. Then we allow them to enter, and maybe all of a sudden we want to get vengeance. And so it's important for us to understand that when we have unhealed trauma, we attract these things to us, and we can ultimately allow them to enter. Do you feel that today's modern landscape, it's imperative that parents and people of authority be more vigilant, especially because young people can easily get drugs through the internet? Yeah, I feel like we like if it I know of somebody who is actually a psychiatrist, and her son got drugs from somebody on Snapchat. She had no idea, and he was in her house, and he died. And so I feel like, as parents, we, especially if a child is like, I guess under the age of 18, but I really feel like 13 to 16 they're very susceptible. And so, maybe having a way so that we can monitor what they're doing online and, the conversations that they're having, not to invade their privacy, but just to keep them safe. You don't have to read every single text message, but you can scroll through it quickly and make sure that you understand like what's going on in your child's life. I think that's very, very important. What would you say to people who are addicts to? Do you engage with people like that? Explicit material. Are you talking about like porn? So we are actually at time, but this is a great subject. If you're talking about porn actually is now proven to change the chemistry of the brain. And I know quite a few people who have, been celibate or single, not celibate by choice, but single for years and just relied on porn. I know one person in particular who was celibate for 7 years, relied on porn, and then got into a relationship with a woman and wasn't able to get aroused by an actual woman because, for one, his sexual arousal was coming from watching other people have sex versus actually engaging in the activity himself. So it is harmful, very harmful. And it's definitely something that we walked through in the 40-day journey of purging. So on that note, I believe that's going to be a wrap. But Feel free to leave any questions or comments in the chat, and I will get to them tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow.